Good day, everyone. My name is Nibu, and I work as a principal engineer in NetApp. Today, I'm quite excited to speak about data center health monitoring and remediations. Imagine you're on a long drive. You're cruising through the highway, enjoying the weather, and all of a sudden, your engine just cranks. The first thing that comes to your mind is, why couldn't my engine just give me an alert? The same is true for storage too. Storage and the applications they support are becoming complex day by day. Customers put data availability and security as their top priority. Troubleshooting issues and deriving a solution is often time-consuming and difficult. This could have an adverse effect on the organization. It could also cost the revenue of the organization. This is exactly why there is a need of a continuous monitoring system that could pinpoint issues in the data center and provide remediations if there are any. Data center monitoring and remediations could be on-prem, or it could be an off-prem activity. When it is an on-prem, it requires some tools to be installed onto the environment, and these tools then check what's happening with the environment. Let's take a scenario over here. A data engineer walks into the customer's environment in order to deploy a new data center. This could also be a case where the customer would want to upgrade their systems as part of a tech refresh. Once the deployment is complete and everything is perfect, how does the customer ensure that the health of the system is appropriate, or if the installation is done as per the standards? That's where these kind of tools come into play, and they do a pretty well and a good job. NetApp has some tools that could do this job well too. Config Advisor, just like how you can see the screens attached to the slide, does the same job. It collects some data from the data center in order to run thousands of checks to find if there are any issues in the customer environment. This could also happen as a step-by-step guide to the data engineer who's trying to deploy the system on the customer environment. The system then generates a UI report which the data engineer or the customer could review and take appropriate actions if there are any issues. If you look at a screenshot of the main report, it shows a green bar. The green bar talks about the health of the system or the data center being appropriate. If there are any issues, it would be pinpointed on this health chart itself. A step ahead is basically to look at how the cables have been done in the environment. If you look at the screenshot, it shows about how the environment has been cabled. It could also pinpoint issues if there are any cabling issues. A tool that is looking at the data center health or monitoring the health should look at the complete environment. When I say a complete environment, it not only includes the storage, it also includes the switch and the other peripherals that gets connected to the system. Unless and until the health is looked up at a holistic level, there is no way that you could make sure that the data center is upright and working appropriately. These tools do a pretty good job of setting up the environment at the day zero and running these checks and telling the user if there are any issues or not. These could be easily converted into a schedule-based activity wherein the user could just schedule these checks on a periodic level and monitor the system accordingly and check if there are any issues. One major component of these tools is basically to provide or to recommend remediations if there are any issues. Just like I spoke about the car, only showing an alert and without any recommendations on how to fix it doesn't make any sense in this new era. So a tool that is doing a continuous monitoring should also be capable of telling on how the issue could be fixed. And if possible, try to automate these issues. These tools could be deployed on a SaaS basis too. I mean, whenever it's needed, you just download it, install it, do the work, and it's done. So these tools have to be part of a SaaS-based offering, and NetApp does provide them as a SaaS-based offering too. The other important feature that could be of an on-prem tool is like these checks that gets added should be available to the software, just like how our antivirus remediations or recommendations or signatures are being updated. Just like how the signatures are updated, these checks could just then be updated onto the system. Let's talk about some offline solutions. The offline solution is basically looking at data and running these checks onto an environment which is not onto the customer's environment. NetApp has a predictive analytics system that looks at petabytes of data that the customers send and then derive predictive analytics over them. Thousands of controllers send telemetry data as part of ASAP to NetApp. These telemetry data, basically petabytes of data, go through multiple machine learning algorithms, basically classification models, to derive rich community wisdom. This community wisdom is then used to check whether the incoming data has some issues, or it could also predict and forecast for any other issues that could happen in the future. The system then could tell the user through ActiveIQ onto if there are any issues into the system. The user logs on to ActiveIQ, which is like a dashboard for all the clusters in the customer's environment, and could look at issues or look at the forecast, the trends, and check if there are any issues with the problem with the data center. Once an issue is found, again, like I said, remediation is the key. It will look for recommendation on how to fix these issues. Both these issues have their own merits. It could also be like, if the user is not willing to send back data, none of this continuous monitoring happens in case of an offline solution. In case of an on-prem solution, if the user is reluctant to install a software onto the environment and collect data and run these rules, these don't serve well to the purpose. Also, these are much more like a reactive approach of an issue and then fixing it. How about pivoting these to a solution wherein the box itself knows on how to fix its own self? This is a concept that is being evolved in NetApp, and we call it the auto-healing framework. This is a concept and is being worked on as in NetApp. The idea over here is to build an ONTAP. The vision is to basically to build an ONTAP that could heal its own self. How do we do this? It's pretty quite simple. We have an analytics framework which has the rich community wisdom being developed out of it. We pick the rich community wisdom, put it onto the box, and make the box capable of fixing its own self. If I could describe this, this could be looked at like a solution wherein it removes all the pain points of the administrator by just a fix-it button. A brief conceptual overview on how this could work. NetApp, basically ONTAP, the operating system, already has a way wherein you could subscribe to key events on what's happening onto the system. And that is called, and that channel is called the PubSub architecture of ONTAP. The idea is to subscribe to the PubSub architecture of ONTAP, listen for events on the PubSub, and once we identify the events, run these events across the rich community wisdom. By doing so, we could identify what could be the issue arise out of the event. The analytics that runs in the box looks at the historical data that comes as part of the community wisdom. It looks also at the current state by running a brief data collection. Comparing these two, it is able to find if there are any issues in the system. Once this issue is identified, it also maps it to a probable solution on how this could be fixed. This is a very key feature that comes into play. Just like I discussed in the on-prem as well as the off-prem solutions, pointing issues has no merit. We should be able to guide the customer on how to fix them too. And that is where mapping the issue to a remediation is quite important. Once this mapping of the issue, that's basically triaging of the issue and assigning a remediation to it is completed, this is being notified back via the EMS mechanism of ONTAP. Any client that is subscribed to this PubSub channel would then receive these notifications. Let's look at the block diagram and try to understand what was just being explained. If you look at the ONTAP box, it has the PubSub channel, just like what I spoke through. It has an analytics engine which runs and compares these community wisdom against an issue that is being formed or notified on the PubSub channel. Once the issue is found, it then pushes it back to the PubSub channel. This also takes care of attaching a remediation, just like how I explained onto it. The brain over here is the rich community wisdom that comes through the analytics and the predictive analytics solution that I just spoke about. The whole thing is then reported via the client, which could be listening to the PubSub channel. When the user is comfortable of running a fix-it, so if the user wants to fix the issue, the user could then signal a fix-it, which then comes to a remediation engine, which does the job. We're thinking of a way which could automate this further. So if there are certain issues which doesn't need any user guidance or there is no user interaction needed over there, these could be fixed automatically if occurred in place. So this is how the whole concept works. And this is where the whole monitoring system is being moved from an on-prem solution to an off-prem solution, and then embedding back into the system itself so that there is zero interaction of the customer. So the storage itself is able to monitor itself right from when it is deployed to when it is working and tell if there are any issues and fix them automatically. This is where the whole story of the car that got cranked up and not raising an alert binds together in this case, wherein we have a system which is running, tells, okay, I have an issue. It also tells the customer on how it could be fixed ahead. Takeaways. Just like I said, data center deployments are a complex task. It involves many steps and is quite error-prone. Providing a step-by-step guidance to the customer or to the data center engineer makes the engineers and the customer's life simple. Health monitoring and remediations add customer value by monitoring and fixing the issues before they become a big problem. This allows the administrator to spend more time focused on business objectives and customer service. Empowering the customer by having continuous monitoring system would help the system to learn better, check and predict issues and failures, and save the data center from catastrophes of data loss and downtime. Thank you.